Welcome to StartupHakk. Today we're going to talk about how we're seeing a spike of entrepreneurs coming in since the pandemic, and we're going to talk about some of the reasons why, and talk about some different ways in which we can handle some of these newly minted entrepreneurs, and why now is the best time ever to take off and start to be an entrepreneur. So let's get started. Welcome to StartupHakk. My name is Spencer Thomason. I am the CEO and co-founder of CleanRouter, as well as many other products. Here are some lessons that I've learned building a successful business while challenging startup norms. My challenge is to push you to rethink startup success. Welcome to StartupHakk. All right, let's go ahead and dig in. So a lot of people had great startup ideas. They were working in their jobs and they were just kind of going along, but they had these ideas that they always wanted to try. And then March of 2020 came and everything shut down. There were people who lost jobs. There were people who just were brought to home and had more time than they'd ever had. I think a large portion of America was honestly just working with the fact that they were telecommuting now. And so suddenly there was even commute times that was new. So suddenly everybody just had a lot more time on their hands in March of 2020 as the pandemic hit and as it took hold of the country. I remember pulling onto the roads and seeing the roads empty. So, I mean, everything was just less time. There was more people at home, less time out. And so with people sitting around, there was a lot of ideas that started to decide to take root. Now, so there's a part of, and this has been part of a growing tide, but according to the U.S. Census Bureau, that in 2021, there were over 5.4 million applications for new businesses that were filed, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. And that's 23% gain over 2020. Now, in 2020, there was a lot too, but in 2021 alone, there was a 23% gain. That's huge. It's one of the largest growths we have ever seen in the history as people are filing for new businesses. So why is that? And what can we do? And if you're one of those, then what are some things that you can do to dig in? Or maybe you want to be one of those and you didn't quite pull the trigger yet. So we'll talk a little bit about some of those things here today. So, as we look at the graph, you're going to see this huge spike. And so right now, as we talk about the Great Resignation, I think a large portion of the Great Resignation is this 23%. There's 23% larger number of new businesses. And so I think there's a whole host of entrepreneurs who are going at it. I know as I've talked with people, a lot of those are people who are second income. So maybe a wife who was working in the workplace before, but now that her husband's telecommuting, they've gotten rid of a car, they've cut down on some expenses, and realized that maybe with a small side hustle, the wife can replace enough of her income to make it so that she doesn't go back to a full-time day job. So I've probably talked to a dozen people who have been in that business. I've also talked to business owners who are struggling to hire people. Right now, we're seeing one of the greatest differences in the workforce because we have one of the highest numbers or one of the lowest numbers of unemployment. So one of the highest numbers of employment ratio. But then at the same time, we're having one of the worst shortages of workers. And a lot of this, I think, is coming down to this, that we're seeing a lot of entrepreneurs who are going at things on themselves. And so, that's really good information. And I'll be curious to see as we review the numbers in 2023, 2024, how this is going to shape up. Because as we all know, about 9 out of 10 businesses fail in the first 2 years. So how many of these small businesses were propped up with stimulus funds? How much of these small businesses will make it past a couple of years? That's going to be an interesting thing to come and look back on. So we can talk a little bit about why we're seeing this interesting change in the workforce and how it's going to affect us. And so starting a business is not easy, as we all know. And, there's a lot of people who are doing things like loaning against or cashing out their 401ks. We see a lot of different ways that people are funding these startup businesses to make them work. So here's a quote from an article. It says, people have become disaffected with what they're doing and might as well do the thing they've wanted to do for a while. And so as you do this, or if you're in this category, there's a lot of different ways that you can go about this. I do think right now is the best time that we've ever had to start a company. When we started CleanRouter in 2009, we were standing up servers in my laundry room. I had 2 different ISPs coming into my house because internet was so unreliable. We had, getting hardware was so much more difficult. Connecting with contractors was extremely, almost unheard of, especially as global as it is now. And so things like Fiverr and Upwork have made connecting to these contractors so much simpler. There's so many, right now is the best time to start a business. And so from server costs to hiring of contractors to finding people who are used to working remote, right now is one of the best times we've ever had to start a company. So I would encourage each of you to, go through this channel. Make sure you like and subscribe to this channel, because in this channel, we go through a lot of different tips that I give from experiences that I've had from starting my multiple ventures. And so make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel, and it's a great community to help each other. And I'm always glad you can reach out, and I'm glad to help people, to coach and counsel people who need help in starting their business. So it's going to be an interesting thing as we watch this explosion of entrepreneurial, and watch this great resignation that we're seeing right now, to see where that's going to land long term, and how this is going to affect the market. Because right now, everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. It's definitely something that we're seeing come to fruition. So make sure you get your kids protected with the CleanRouter. It's been a great product, and we've sold over 25,000 of them. Make sure that you are getting your kids protected with the CleanPhone. It's new, but we haven't had a single return yet. Rave reviews, people love them. It's definitely something that you want to make sure that what your kids are staring at, that and have good control over. So thanks, and we'll talk to you next time.